They chose a career path they thought would make a difference, helping kids who'd wandered to the wrong side of the tracks. But in 2005, Senior Constables Steve Plunkett and Adam Logan Pye were alleged to have defrauded the Lake Macquarie PCYC, based at Windale. Police say the pair obtained 2 autographed State of Origin Rugby League jumpers for personal gain after claiming they'd be sold to raise money for children's programs. They pleaded not guilty, were suspended from the force and endured 2 long years worth of on-again, off-again hearings in Newcastle Local Court. Today, Magistrate Richard Wakely dismissed the charges, accepting explanations and supporting evidence that using proceeds to purchase a golfing membership for Mr Logan Pye, as well as to send Mr Plunkett's daughter to a basketball camp, were of benefit to PCYC programs. The long-running hearing has cost taxpayers more than $1 million. With their names now cleared, neither would be drawn on whether they'll return to the police force.
2 years of his life has been just in turmoil. He's been humiliated. He's been depressed, he's been at a loss as to why this has happened, and of course now he can get on with it.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
It's an issue which has obviously divided councillors, with the Lord Mayor forced to use his casting vote last night to approve the Telstra mobile tower. Councillor Tate says the Land and Environment Court regularly approves such development applications, so it would have been pointless for council to knock it back.
I think it's irresponsible to spend ratepayers' money on court fees and solicitors' costs and barristers' costs and QC's costs to try and achieve something that's impossible to achieve.
The 23-metre high structure similar to this one will improve poor mobile phone coverage in Mayfield East. Telstra says 5 sites were investigated, including the former BHP land, but only one was deemed suitable, a small section of this car park in an industrial area at Mayfield East. And in other council news, the state government has announced a 3.4% cap on local council rates to protect families from uncontrolled rate rises. However, councils are able to seek a special rate variation, with Newcastle and Lake Macquarie among those already flagging a rate increase well above the 3.4% rate cap. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
So we're certainly looking forward to what will be a state-of-the-art medical research facility of international standard in Newcastle.
The 125 millimetres of rain that fell over Chichester Dam in the past 6 weeks is only half of what Newcastle received during April, but has been enough to provide a big boost for hunter water stocks.
We're up to about 84% in storage, and that's 14% more than the same period last year, and that's even with the significant supply to the Central Coast over the summer.
Even though 2,400 megalitres was piped south, Chichester Dam is full, with the overflow going down the Hunter River pumped into Grahamstown Dam, lifting it to 91%. While southern transfers are on hold for at least a couple of weeks because the Central Coast Receival Point Marty Dam is full, Wyong and Gosford councils are rueing the 30-year delay in connecting Marty by pipeline to the much bigger Mangrove Dam, and it now needs government funding.
The local councils haven't got the $80 million in their coffers to do it.
The drought is also impacting on the Upper Hunter, with Glennies Creek Dam down to 26%, leaving Singleton residents just days away from level 4 restrictions, which will severely limit outdoor water use for both residents and business. Level 1 restrictions in Scone and Muswellbrook to conserve water aren't expected to be toughened, even though Glenbourne Dam has fallen to 27%. Gary Blair, NBN News.
After 10 years in the police force, Dennis Young resigned to spend a year in Iraq helping provide security for the US Marine Corps. He now runs an army disposal business and was setting up a shop in a new location in the Newcastle suburb of Wallsend when he saw 3 teenagers stealing a car. Without hesitating, he sprang into action.
So I've reached in and grabbed him and he swung a screwdriver at me and tried to get me. So I fixed him up and we sort of wrestled around the car for a while. And then his mates come and try to get me from behind. So I shut the door and locked us both in the car. Then I dragged him out the other side and threw him on the ground.
With a small crowd looking on, the youth Dennis was holding faked an asthma attack, and when he loosened his grip, the boy escaped, slashing Dennis with a small knife in the process.
And the most disappointing thing was no one had come to help me. I was yelling out for people to come and help, but everyone just sort of stood back and watched.
The former cop says he knows the boys and will call the police when he sees them again.
There's a lot of crime in Wallsend at the moment, and it's not the police's fault. They've got to do what the politicians say. So the Wallsend should never have lost the police station.
The car owner, who was in Wallsend for medical treatment, has thanked Dennis for saving his vehicle. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
He's a man who knows a thing or two about state of origin. A veteran of 23 appearances for the Blues, Andrew John says the Knights' Danny Badiris and Steve Simpson know how to deal with the big occasion. He says the pressure lies with debutants Kurt Gidley and Jared Mullen.
For young guys, which they both are, it can be daunting, but they're ready, they'll be fine.
The recently retired league legend was impressed with the selectors' decision to start the Storm's Brett White in the front row.
He deserves it. He put his hand up in City Country. He was the best player on the field, and his form at Melbourne has been outstanding.
Centre Jamie Lyon says he's confident of beating a dangerous throw charge at the judiciary tonight in order to play in Origin 1. The former series-winning captain doesn't believe there was much in the tackle.
To miss a state of origin because of that tackle, it seems a bit harsh, but they're the rules, aren't they?
With the Maroons staying loyal to the side that won last year's series, John says they deserve the early favouritism, but there's no question where his heart lies.
I like the look of the Blues team, but I would say that.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. It's a long way from the dirt of Argenton to the tracks of Victoria, Canada. For Chris Westwood, the trip with the Australian team is a dream realised at an early age.
Oh yeah, I've made a couple of state teams and that, but nothing this big. It's really good to be on the team.
Chris won't be our only local representative. 15-year-old Adam Sanderson will fly out as part of a national development squad.
I've never been overseas before, so it's going to be a good experience.
It's not just the Lake Macquarie Club's boys making noise. 12-year-old Rachel Jones is a national champion, earmarked as an international star of the future. The boys admit riders from the US will be our main rivals.
Definitely the Americans, it's just so big over there, so they got the opportunities to travel and just always riding, so they're the ones we've got to beat.
Despite being a relatively new international sport, the competition is still expected to be intense, with little room for error in the knockout format.
It's all over in one day. You could have one bad race and that's you done for the whole week, so it's pretty full on.
Chris leaves for a warm-up event in the US in early July, while the rest of the Australian team leaves on the 20th. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The dilapidated Gloucester River Bridge has been a thorn in the town's side for years. Built in 1958, the timber structure has become so brittle that heavy vehicles can no longer use it, and that's placed an economic burden on some of the town's businesses, which use big trucks to transport their goods in from the New England area.
If they can't get through, it's a long way around for them to go, and of course that destroys the economic benefit.
But the bridge's era is fast coming to an end, with demolition work now underway as Gloucestershire Council prepares to replace it with a stronger concrete composite bridge. For the next 6 months at least, motorists will have to use this low-level side track to get in and out of the town, which should be fine as long as the road doesn't flood. The new bridge will cost $1.4 million to build and, once complete, should provide more than just an economic benefit.
It's not a particularly attractive bridge that we have there at the moment, so a U-beard upgraded bridge will sort of make it more attractive entrance to the town.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Brook Medical Centre is one place you get a snapshot of the gulf between supply and demand for a general practitioner. The Muswellbrook surgery has 16 GPs, including many overseas trained doctors, and a surgeon to service 20,000 patients. Knowing demand will remain high, the practice has almost doubled in size with an eye to the future.
Our biggest problem is attracting doctors. So if you can attract a medical practitioner to somewhere where everything's easy, that makes working a bit easier. And therefore living in the country is not so much an encumbrance if you find work's easier.
The $500,000 addition of 4 consulting rooms and larger facilities to house pathology and ultrasound services was made possible by the federal government's Regional Partnership Funding Program. The additions complement existing support services at the one-stop medical facility, a facility that will now increase its training role to assist 8 medical registrars and 35 medical students with their professional development each year. It's experience that Newcastle-trained Dr Ragnar Mulsater has found highly beneficial.
It's been a steep learning curve for me, but I've got a great experience and I think I've learnt a lot, and I've only been here for the last 4 months.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Well, traditionally this time of the year, there's not as many tenants looking for property, so compared to the beginning of the year.
It took Rhonda Whiteman 6 years on and off to complete the distinctive quilt pictured in this photograph. It was a labour of love in every sense. Her husband Bruce, who was dying of cancer, had chosen the design from a magazine, and Rhonda was determined to complete the brightly coloured quilt, dedicating it to him.
My husband said to me, he said, "Why don't you give that one a go? It's nice and colourful." And of course I didn't get a chance to finish it before he passed away with cancer. So I decided to donate it to the Cancer Council so that they could make some money from it.
She offered the quilt as a raffle prize, and it was placed on display inside a ladies' fashion store in Swansea, where tickets were sold for the Cancer Council. But 2 weeks ago, the much-loved and admired quilt was stolen from the shop.
Oh, I was horrified. I was absolutely horrified. It's just as if somebody had just punched you in the stomach. It's a terrible feeling.
The shop owners are now offering a $200 reward, and no questions will be asked if it's returned.
And we would be very pleased to see her come back. You lose a bit of faith in human nature, don't you?
The quilt can be left anonymously at St Vincent de Paul in Swansea.
I've got a feeling deep down that they will get it back. I'm hoping so anyway.
Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
A rare decision to extend the competition period in the hope of securing the thunderous barrels Chalfield was famous for paid off. 2 to 3 metre monsters pounded the shallow reef break, providing a perfect playground for surfing's elite in the finals. After eliminating 3-time world champ Andy Irons during the quarters, Australia's Joel Parkinson lost his momentum, bundled out by the man who would go on to win the title. Fellow Gold Coaster Mick Fanning had better luck in the semis, nailing a flawless 10-point ride to stop the run of tour rookie Kai Otten and snag a place in the decider against Damien Hobgood. Forced to retire from the Tahiti final with a dislocated shoulder in 2005, it was a determined Hobgood who took on the dangerous left-hander, pulling off a rare double barrel for his first wave. Fanning took the lead with a 9.33 score before his surfboard succumbed to the pressure. It was tit for tat in the 35-minute heat, with the lead changing hands several times. Then, as the clock wound down the final 60 seconds, the Floridian goofy footer positioned himself beautifully to pull off a clean barrel ride and secure the crown on one of Mother Nature's most vicious creations.
You think of places like here and Pipe that are just, you really feel like that they're like the grand slams of our sport.
Jessica Phyllis, NBN News.
They've already made some of the fastest boats to hit the high seas, like the trimaran that carried Britain's Ellen MacArthur to her 2005 around the world speed record. Hobart winner Nicorette and Volvo ocean race contender Telefonica movie star also came from the Central Coast factory of Boat Speed. So there's every chance that the company's latest creation, a 32-metre trimaran, the largest of its type ever built, will also be very fast. Constructed at Summersby, the $10 million, 105-foot-long carbon composite speed machine has been trucked to the docks in Newcastle for assembly. It'll be sailed by Frenchman Thomas Caville, who aims to break Ellen MacArthur's solo around-the-world record of 71 days, 14 hours. Capable of speeds of around 80 kilometres an hour, it'll be launched next month and sailed to France before the world record attempt begins in November. The completion of the boat will bring mixed feelings for its builders.
We've been building it since June last year, and I think, all the boys get fairly emotional, very proud, very extremely proud, but a bit emotional because it's a lot of your life gone and sailing up the harbour.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
With Olympic qualification on the line, the game started at a frantic pace. Newcastle Jets striker Mark Bridge with Australia's first attempt after just 90 seconds. From the resulting corner, debutant Aaron Downs rose up, producing a perfect header to give the Olyroos the lead. Iran returned fire before the parochial home crowd was back in their seats. Slick passing up front and a cool finish had the visitors back on level terms. The Olyroos were unlucky not to go back in front in the 39th minute when Mark Milligan found the net, but Downs was penalised for an infringement. 2 minutes later, hometown boy James Troisi was brought down on the edge of the area. Following plenty of protest, Bridge calmly slotted home the spot kick to restore Australia's lead. 8 minutes after the break, Bridge and Sydney's Nikolai Topor-Stanley cut through Iran's defence before Troisi finished for the green and gold. The only blemish on the night came midway through the second half, when Bridge was sent off after taking offence to this challenge. The Jets striker will now miss the crucial final pool game against Jordan. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
The middle of Scone Racecourse may reflect the condition of the surrounding countryside, but ironically the track is in perfect condition for the 8 Race Cup meeting.
We have never had it race in this condition, this fantastic condition, so it is the best it's been in the 14 years that this track has been here.
Today, the final preparations were being made trackside to cater for the anticipated bumper crowd, even if forecast rain does happen to fall.
I've been hearing news when it's absolutely poured, but it never puts anyone off.
And no Cup meeting would be complete without some pre-race pub talk, and at the Willow Tree it has the makings of a racing fairy tale. It's about a publican and his syndicate that bought a horse at the Scone Sales 2 years ago, put it in the hands of a local trainer, and reckon it's time for a hometown Cup victory when, with a chance, aims up for win 13 from 30 starts.
Yeah, it'd be great. You know, we tried to have a go at it last year and didn't get in, so yeah, hopefully this year we can do something.
And for trainer Luke Griffith, the accolade of putting the family name on a trophy that has so far eluded them.
My father trained, he had a couple of seconds. My brother, he trains at Musbrook now, and he's won a few placings, but no, hometown cup would be excellent.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
According to Hunter captain Jane Menzies, 2 straight losses isn't cause for panic as the young squad continues to gel. But the Jaegers are still hurting after throwing away a chance to beat Melbourne last week.
I think we showed patches of some really solid stuff, some quite special netball, but we couldn't string it together for 4 quarters, which was the same story as a week before against Adelaide.
The Jaegers have never beaten this week's opponents, the Swifts, in 6 previous meetings, but this time Sydney is missing 5 Australian representatives. After Adelaide broke Sydney's record 18-match winning streak last week, the Jaegers won't be taking them lightly.
By the same token, we lost last week too, and we'd like to get back in the winners' circle, so I'm sure there'll be plenty of feeling and plenty of motivation out there on court tomorrow night for both teams.
Standout shooter Alex Harding will again be heavily marked, but Karen Bailey is beginning to give coach John Fletcher a welcome selection headache.
They've still got sort of a rivalry going on within the team, and it's keeping them working really hard at training, so it'll be interesting to see what John does this week.
The game at the Newcastle Entertainment Centre starts at 8 o'clock tomorrow night. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Since its opening in 1988, more than 1.5 million visitors have passed through the regional museum to explore the extraordinary exhibits. And while August 26 will be an emotional day, staff say the closure is a positive move.
There's a lot of people feel strongly, but at the same time we're looking forward. We want to become a bolder, brighter, better museum for the 21st century, and that's what we're going to produce.
The museum inside the Heritage Brewery buildings is situated on the corner of a much larger site owned by Newcastle City Council, which also includes the S&W Miller building and a car wash. The entire site is expected to be sold by council early next year.
It's a great site. It's one of the most important sites in the city. 4 street frontages. We front Hunter Street and King Street and Stewart Avenue. So we hope, and I don't want to sound like a salesman, but I hope somebody comes along with a fabulous idea for really making this site work for Newcastle West.
Profits from the sale will be injected directly into the development of the new $16 million museum inside 3 of the Honeysuckle Railway Workshop buildings. But we'll have to wait, as the exhibits will be mothballed until the end of 2009 when the new venue opens. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
This will be the last green area along Cessnock Road, and we are concerned that we keep some sort of semi-rural feel, especially for the young kids growing up here.
Ambulance staff say a street directory is fine when there are 2 officers in the vehicle, but as is often the case in regional areas, a single officer is sent to find and then treat the patient.
As traffic gets worse and worse, it's very difficult to read a map and keep an eye on the traffic and get to a location with the least amount of time when time's critical.
In-car navigation devices which use GPS technology talk to the driver, eliminating the need for them to stop and look at a map. This one was donated to the Rutherford station by Barry Hill from the East Maitland Autobahn, whose family was shocked by a recent case reported in the media.
There was a 14-year-old boy with a cardiac arrest and they had trouble finding him. So with my little bloke having a few problems, I thought it would be a good idea to help them out with at least one.
While the officers are grateful to have the system, Ambulance Brass says it's still evaluating the merits of the technology and will trial the donated unit.
Because there's lives at risk, all said and done. It's not a joke. It should be something that they think about putting in all vehicles.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The Fashion Stakes were always going to be high for the richest day of racing in country New South Wales. The Dryserbone was well worn, while the umbrella was a must-have accessory.
Nice weather for the farmers, better for the punters so they can back a winner.
Fantastic.
With Scone enjoying a half-day public holiday, punters wasted no time soaking things up, as did the racecourse, downgraded to heavy after that overnight rain.
The track's running very fairly, so we're just glad to still be moving ahead.
It almost didn't for a handful of Sydney jockeys. Bad weather meant their plane didn't arrive until after race 2. Nash Rawilla was just in time to saddle up the aptly named Vision of Flight for the $160,000 Inglis Challenge. This ride went to schedule and then some. The gelding paid $10.20, representing the biggest win to date for the 2-year-old's trainer Darren Magro and owner Clinton Serena.
Darren's only been training a short period of time, and I've been breeding horses a short period of time.
Another big result was to come in race 6, Rosa's Spur returning $11.70 with another handy trifecta to follow. It was as close as it comes in the feature. Spy's Aim squeezing out Flaming to win the Scone Cup. As for the rain, it left as quickly as it came, much like money spent during a day at the races. Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
Barley Ranch Raceway was part farmer's dream, part event organisers' nightmare this morning. With a dam to tease any beast, even shelter offered little comfort for those in charge.
There's people coming from all over Australia.
But today's late break in the weather and a favourable forecast for the weekend means Sunday's National Motocross Series round will definitely go ahead.
Rain, hail or shine, we'll be racing. You know, we've run 151 of these and we've only ever cancelled one, so and that wasn't the track.
That's music to the ears of fans and riders, with Chad Reed to race motocross on home soil for the first time since 2000.
Every rider, is keen for him to come back and just see what he can do and how he's going, and it's going to be a good day for him.
Australian champion Craig Anderson wrapped up the title at this track last year, but knows his younger cousin is keen to show just why he's one of the world's best in front of local fans.
It's going to be great to race against him, to see what how fast he's going and where we're at, and it's going to be awesome.
That's not to say Australia's 6th highest earning sportsperson will have it all his own way at the start, with side bets already riding on who'll hit the first corner in front.
Definitely, if he gets a whole shot, he'll be definitely taking our money, even though we don't need it, so it's all good.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. The Hunter Jaegers haven't beaten the Sydney Swifts in any of their 6 clashes. Kimberly Purcell should know she played in most of them for Hunter. But tonight she's back at her former home court in Sydney's colours for what is her 50th National League appearance.
Yeah, I'm really happy to achieve 50 games. It's taken me about 8 years in the National League, so it's a bit of a milestone for me.
The match also marks 60 games for good friend Lara Wellham. That's who Purcell will be marking tonight.
Lara wrote me a message saying, "Hope you've had your Weet-Bix." So yeah, I love playing against Lara. It's always a good tussle.
Cessnock's Kane Bradley has been recalled to the Newcastle Rugby League rep team to replace injured captain Paul Skovgaard. It wasn't that long ago that the former country halfback was advised not to play at all on medical grounds, so his inclusion continues a remarkable comeback. All round 9 Newcastle Rugby League matches are on Sunday, with Bradley's Goannas up against the ladder leaders in Lakes United. In Newcastle and Hunter Rugby, the clash between Nelson Bay and University looks to be the game of the round. And the NBN Football League starts tonight, while Lake Macquarie heads to Hamilton tomorrow night, with 3 games on Sunday.
Police say the 24-year-old woman was driving this Toyota Starlet hatchback west along Scenic Drive when she hit a Holden Commodore travelling south along City Road just after 7 o'clock last night.
It appears at this time that one of the vehicles coming out of Scenic Drive has cut across the path of a vehicle that was coming up a Pacific Highway, and subsequently the collision occurred.
Several off-duty police officers, a registered nurse and a Westpac rescue helicopter operator were the first people to arrive at the crash site. However, despite their efforts to revive the woman, she died at the scene. A 30-year-old Charlestown man was then taken to John Hunter Hospital, where he remains in a stable condition. Madeline Bond, NBN News. Cutting between $250,000 and $350,000, which equates to 50% of Newcastle City Council's tourism budget, would devastate the industry, according to the Hunter Regional Tourism Organisation.
You can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You can't just take tourism and just go, it's all over. There's no money for leisure tourism. It can't happen. You can't have a business plan that works like that.
But such arguments could be in vain, as Council needs to cut at least $4 million out of its next financial budget.
Most people clearly know now that we need to put as much money as we can into infrastructure maintenance, and to find the money to do that we need to look at other things that may not be as important.
The tourism organisation says there has to be another solution.
And what we'd like to see is more industry input and actually go from an advisory board to a board of directors for tourism.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The Swifts may have been under strength but still boasted former Aussie player and Megan Dan. Missing 5 to national duty though, the visitors struggled early to match the home side's combinations. Settling into a good rhythm, the Jaegers made the most of every possession. Narelle Ether was everywhere and Karen Bailey fed off her teammate with pinpoint finishing. Sydney soon hit their straps as they brought the game back to level terms. Defence was the key as the Jaegers' last line forced turnovers. And then turned that pressure into points. It was a 5-goal drive for the home side that broke the game wide open before half-time. And they only built on it after the break as Bailey continued her shooting spree. Combined with Tiffany Lincoln, Bailey took Hunter's lead into double figures. Lara Wellham had to wait until the fourth quarter before stepping out for her 60th league match, but what an impact she made, stealing possession and feeding her shooters, while dropping in a few goals of her own to round out a memorable match for all the Hunter side.
Themes are big at the Newcastle Variety Club Bash this year, with superheroes, famous faces and a few oddballs hitting the road on this generosity-packed adventure. Led by 10-year-old Claire Bertoli, the bash involving around 50 very unique cars and 200 participants depart at Lake Macquarie on the week-long journey to Broken Hill and back. Organisers hope to fleece participants out of more than $300,000.
And what happens is all these people have raised money during the year, and it's up to us in the next week to try and drag that money out of them as we go around. So they might receive a series of fines. It might be a fine for an ugly passenger. As a matter of fact, most of the cars will get that one.
All that's required to take part in the bash is a pre-1970s vehicle, preferably one that's decked up with a bit of car bling.
And other than that, just basically have a willingness to raise money for special needs kids, and I suppose basically be an idiot.
And the fleet won't only be fundraising, they'll also be visiting and donating money to various schools from across the state. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The sun was out, the crowd was packed in, and it seemed headed for just one man, Chad Reed. He's the success story of Australian Supercross. The kid from Curry, who's won a world championship and already made millions from the sport, was back home, close to where things all began.
To see all these people in blue and white, and you know, with the 22 and everything like that, it's quite amazing. It's a thrill. I would be lying if I say I didn't like it. It's a lot of fun to come out here. It puts a smile on my face for sure.
So too with fellow racers, like his cousin and current national champion Craig Anderson, who grew up racing Reed on tracks like this one. And they were all out to show him up, at least at the start, and Reed did get shuffled back to fourth at the first turn. He brushed that aside and was soon duelling one-on-one with National Series leader Daniel Reardon. Reed stayed on the young charger's back wheel over the opening laps, and the crowd loved every bit. Once he assumed the lead, though, the lesson really began, as Reed pulled away for a comfortable win.
We got around the halfway point, and I felt that I'd ate enough dirt for the day, and just kind of put some good laps together, pulled a gap, and finished strong.
The day wasn't done. Reed taking out the second race as well in a homecoming few fans will forget in a hurry.
18-year-old Brendan Knight's decision to let a 19-year-old friend drive him to a pie shop after they'd been to a party on Saturday night cost him his life. Police say the driver from Windale, who didn't have a driver's licence, had been drinking alcohol and was speeding when he lost control of his car on Floraville Road and hit a tree, killing Brendan almost instantly.
All the little brothers and sisters have got to grow up and deal with this problem that there's a drunk driver's killed their brother.
Brendan's father believes his son was persuaded to get in the car.
Peer pressure, just come on, I'll drive, I'm right, I'll drive. And normally the guys that have had too much to drink, they can easily be led because they believe him if he says he's capable of driving.
Today he warned others against suffering the same fate.
Don't just get in the car and think, it's just down the road, because it's only, my son died probably 250 to 300 metres away.
It's not the first time tragedy struck on Floraville Road.
We've lost 4 young lives in the last 6 months on that stretch of road. And the majority of those cases have been young drivers driving with alcohol in their system.
Madeline Bond, NBN News. While Lake Macquarie has a population of 192,000, the region is served by just 186 full-time police officers.
And that gives us less than 1 police officer per 1,000 people, where the state average is something like 2.14. It's just not acceptable.
According to Mayor Piper, the officers the region does have are overworked, stressed out and fed up with understaffing. He says in order to bring the local area command's numbers in line with the state average, the area would need to double its officer numbers. But it doesn't look like that will happen anytime soon.
The Premier has made a mistake in just last week announcing one additional police officer. It's an insult to our local officers, and really, if that's all they were going to do, they probably should have done nothing.
A crisis meeting will be held between the Police Association and officers next week to try and resolve the issue. Unless police get more numbers, strike action hasn't been ruled out. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
With thousands of vessels wrecked off the east coast of Australia, it's amazing more ships don't come into contact with their sunken counterparts. The state government believes the incident off Catherine Hill Bay highlights the need for all wrecks to be charted.
The New South Wales government has already started work to determine clearly where the location is so that that wreck is not placed in danger.
The Greens are now claiming the coal ships queuing off Newcastle and the Central Coast also cause environmental concern by dumping waste into Australian waters.
There's no evidence of what the Greens have said, and we will continue to generate the jobs and investment that is very crucial for the whole of the region.
Newcastle Fishermen's Co-op manager Bill Pearce says the large number of ships has seen only a slight rise in the amount of waste. Of greater concern is the space the ships occupy in premium fishing locations. The co-op is now holding talks with the Port Corporation and coal companies in an effort to limit the amount of ships to 30.
We can live with that kind of number, provided they're based in a certain area, but not spread out like they are at the moment.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Three weeks after his maiden nationwide tour victory, Nick Flanagan not only added to the count, but got handed the keys to his first ever car. A sensational finish sealed the win, but it was a dramatic save on the 14th that really put Flanagan in the driver's seat. From there, he powered home with a run of 6 birdies over the last 8 holes. With his putter running hot, the 22-year-old also hit every fairway, and once he was within range, Flanagan peppered the pin placements. He duly drained it as well to take the lead with a 7-under par 65. As the phone ran hot, he watched the challengers fade before heaping praise on his bagman.
My caddy Scotty was the man today, so he really helped me out the last couple of holes.
He's sure to take a snip of the $142,000 winner's cheque, with Flanagan now leading the tour's money list. One more this season and he'll graduate straight onto the US PGA Tour. For now though, it's qualifying for the US Open that's next on the list. You get the feeling if Brian Smith could, he'd rest Jared Mullen after his Origin debut.
All the pressure that the media have piled on him, playing the game of his life, which on Wednesday night, and then the letdown from that, and then try to build himself up again is a big ask.
With depth in the halves department already stretched, though, he's unlikely to get that luxury, with Luke Walsh the latest potential top-grade debutant. However, it's Mullen the coach hopes doesn't return with mental fatigue on top of the physical drain.
He's a special boy, he's got a lot of character and he's very resilient, but I'd still like to see where we're at before we make a decision on him.
He has another to make for a vacant wing spot, with Akila Uarte in the mix along with George Carmont. Meanwhile, the next batch of NRL stars are on show at Toronto this week at the Combined High School State Championships. A number of club recruiters will keep close tabs on the three-day competition for both under-15 and open sides. Meanwhile, in Newcastle Rugby League, South Newcastle continues to stamp themselves as genuine contenders, with the Lions coming from behind to beat Raymond Terrace at the weekend by 14. Daniel Spiteri's try, his 7th on the day, after scoring 6 in reserve grade. The Sydney Half Marathon is as picturesque as it is tough, with the course winding through and over the city's more famous landmarks. Stretching just over 21 kilometres, Brett Cartwright held on to win for the 3rd time, finishing only seconds ahead of fellow Commonwealth Games marathon runner Scott Westcott. It was a solid return for the Newcastle-based teacher, who hasn't raced for 10 months due to injury. Surfing and Daniel Frodsham dominated the final of the Newcastle Regional Board Riders Championships. The Catherine Hill Bay surfer caught a couple of well-timed barrels to shoot out in front and take the title from Dylan Johnston. Meanwhile, the Newcastle North Stars split their national ice hockey double-header against Brisbane at the weekend with a win last night following a loss on Saturday.
The ramifications this little voucher could have on fixing Newcastle's late-night crime problems could be huge.
The scheme was first implemented in the Campbelltown area in 2001. Since then there's been no reported attacks on drivers, no runners, no reports of disorderly conduct, and it's now implemented in over 300 venues across Sydney.
The taxi voucher scheme follows the theory that people are less likely to misbehave if they know they can be easily identified. Passengers' personal details are recorded on one half of the voucher and kept at the premises where it was issued, while the other half is given to cab drivers, so they know exactly who's in their taxi.
Hopefully drivers will be encouraged to pick up in these areas that they're not so inclined to pick up in.
The scheme will be trialled in about 6 weeks' time and has widespread support.
As licensees, we're for anything that's going to bring more transport in the city. It's going to make our taxis feel safer and more confident about getting their fares.
I think it's just another step in the movement towards a safer community.
In tandem with the scheme, the Lord Mayor is also trying to get Commonwealth funding so more CCTV cameras can be installed along Newcastle's inner city streets. Madeline Bond, NBN News.
An important future source of fuel for the Upper Hunters power stations, the Anvil Hill open cut has been targeted by environmentalists over its potential contribution to global warming. Having met landowners waiting for a decision on the mine, the Minister is now awaiting final advice from his planning department.
The department is getting to the point where it will finalise its report to me, and hopefully in the next 1 or 2 weeks, it'll come to me and I'll make a decision.
Unable to make Thursday's State Cabinet meeting in Newcastle because of interstate commitments, the Planning Minister spent the day in the city discussing a range of portfolio issues, including the draft Newcastle City Centre Plan. Due to have been finalised this month, Frank Sartor says the document guiding development, population and jobs growth for the next 25 years is now close to becoming law and has general support.
There is support for higher buildings to the West End. The civic precinct people are more reticent about, and the eastern end people again are more reticent and concerned about heritage buildings.
And the Minister also revealed he's expecting new plans within months from Rose Corp on the Catherine Hill Bay development as the government and the company finalise the detail of what will be built.
This is in the long run. If we do the development well, if we require good quality development, this is a terrific visionary initiative for the Wallara Peninsula.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Newcastle is one of Australia's fastest growing regional airports, and it's those kind of facilities Malaysian carrier AirAsia is targeting. The expense of operating out of Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane airports apparently too much for an airline trying to stay low cost.
I understand that they're targeting Gold Coast, the airport at Avalon near Melbourne and also Newcastle Airport being adjacent to Sydney.
If a deal is struck, Asia's biggest low-cost airline could be operating 3 flights a week from Malaysia by the end of 2008, bringing with it around 400 passengers per flight.
So whilst that's an exciting proposition from a tourism point of view, there are a whole range of logistical and business risk issues we need to address before we can make a final determination as to whether we can host them here at Newcastle.
CEO Paul Hughes says the existing runway could cope with the bigger international aircraft, but taxiing would be tight. Having lost other international carriers in recent years, Mr Hughes says the risk of upgrading the airport to cater for AirAsia may not be worth the possible benefits.
What we have to be very careful of in considering such proposals as AirAsia X is to look at what the long-term investment would be against the chance of these airlines coming and going out of the economy fairly quickly.
Newcastle Airport will submit its proposal within a month. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Jared Mullen has looked every bit an Origin player this week, and today his family got in on the act. Mum, Dad, sister Kayla and a stack of uncles and cousins met today, but come kick-off tomorrow night, there will be 22 in total. It's sure to be an emotional night.
Seeing him run out there tomorrow night, I'll probably be crying.
His truck-driving, coal-mining dad, Steve, a former first-grade player himself, is as hard as the rock he works with. But Dad's advice may not get far.
That's what he usually says to him. He just shakes his head, but that's enough.
The pair have rarely missed a game as the young Mullen rose through the ranks, seemingly destined for the lofty heights. And Mum Leanne admits she wants her little boy to be looked after by the Blues big men.
Is that a shout out, Willie?
Yes, Willie, help.
Steve, not as concerned.
That's not worrying me because I'm not out there. And I don't think it'll worry Jared. He knows they're going to come at him.
And so too are the Mullins, blue jumpers and all.
The Maroons will give it to us, all their supporters, with the blue jumper on, but we just give it back. It's great. Love it.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. There's no doubting the passion Clint Newton has for playing in Newcastle Knights colours. A local junior, he's played all his senior football in red and blue and aspires to make sure that remains the case. But for the first time, he's now contemplating the possibility that may not happen.
You can't get what you want all the time, and if that's the case, then I'll certainly leave this club with good memories. Of course, I'm hoping that won't be the case.
Understood to have already been courted by a number of clubs, including the Sea Eagles, Newton is one of 8 Knights coming off contract, but the club isn't moving just yet.
I think there'll be some action from various clubs after round 13, and probably including ours.
It's not like the club doesn't have enough to worry about already, with 4 players involved in Origin and some injury concerns. The team to play Brisbane could change dramatically after Wednesday night's state match, with Marvin Caruana to start at 5/8. Steve Gordon replaces the injured Todd Polglaze on the wing, but even that's not confirmed.
Our problem with Steve is he has a little injury as well, so we have to see how he goes as the week wears on.
No matter who takes the field, Newton is out to make his 100th game for Newcastle one to remember. Jim Callanan, NBN News.
With places in the state team up for grabs, the students from Northern Division didn't hold back. Sydney Red returned fire, proving why they're one of the strongest teams at these trials. Trailing by 6, Northern's Kevin Gordon produced some individual brilliance, slipping through the defence before racing 70 metres to tie things up. Sydney hit back as halfback Brad Bennett went over untouched. The seesawing contest had more twists, as a perfectly weighted kick from Solomon Foster fell kindly for Beau Ryan, but Northern was unable to find the killer blow after the break. A better day for the boys from the bush as Western Division piled on the points against Presidents. Western was rarely troubled despite some strong resistance, Scott Blanche producing a solo effort to cap off the 40-point win. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
Tom and Margaret not only get great relaxation from their garden, they also get most of their food. Using the principles of permaculture or permanent agriculture, they grow fruit, veggies and herbs using low-cost and innovative techniques like this spiral garden, which gives more soil volume in a compact space. And they say anyone can grow herbs just by placing a few plastic pots on the rungs of an old ladder leaning on the house.
So permaculture emphasises producing more food from less space so that the poor can be fed and can learn to feed themselves, and we can all feed ourselves and not depend on the polluting international, global food transport system and production system with all the diesel fuel spewing into the oceans and so on, back and forth, and we can grow it ourselves.
And even if you don't have a backyard, you can grow sprouts in 4 days on your kitchen bench using a dinner plate and some moist paper towel.